All right,
Yeah, no. I'll watch.
you're live.
I've heard it every which way. I answered to everything, so.
We don't actually have a chair to call the meeting to order, so, actually, is our vice chair, present? Todd Reisler? Let's see. Randall, would you mind calling this meeting to order?
Sure. What's our meeting number?
We are,
I don't have my,
what meeting is this?
I think I saw it was 412.
400.
412.
okay. Well, let's call the planning commission meeting number 412 to order. Have the staff, I don't know, John, will you do the roll call?
Yes, I will. Randall Brennis,
Present?
Ruben Alvarado,
Present.
Ben Dawson, requested absence today, sent an email, said he'd be out, but he will listen to the recording. Brandon Haverly,
Present?
and then position 5 is vacant, Leroy Wagner,
Present.
and Todd Ricewig.
So we have,
Todd's absent, so I believe we have 4 members, so we have 4.
okay, so first order of business. Is there any public comments? I don't think there's anybody in the lobby.
Do we have anybody online?
There is no one in the attendees list, and I did not receive any public comment.
And so not having any public comments, let's go to
Wait, consent agenda?
approving the consent agenda. So do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I move that we approve the consent agenda. Commissioner Wagoner.
Second, Alvarado.
Okay. All those in favor say aye.
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 Anybody opposed? Okay. And what's the first order of business?
Election of officers.
Looks like we might need some.
We do. So if you recall, Brian Roth was our chair last year. Brian took another teaching position in Arizona and abandoned us. Todd Ricewig is our current vice chair. And he's absent tonight, so automatically that means that you guys could appoint him as chair since he's not here to object. That's kind of how it usually works. Yeah, so
So do we have nominations then for get someone to nominate somebody and?
that's how we usually handle it, yes.
All right. So we have an open position then of the chair. I think I want to nominate Leroy Wagner.
I would like to decline. We're going to be gone for the next 3 months.
Okay.
Sorry, but not real sorry.
You'd be so good at it, Leroy.
I think you would be.
No.
I guess it depends on where you're going.
Yeah, I would nominate Randall right there. He's a good guy.
I guess I wouldn't decline it. I know that we have a lot of new people. At least I've been here for a while.
Yeah.
I know that Todd, because of his work, is not able to be here meeting. And I hate to just die in his absence. Vote him in. But do we need a second to the nomination that Leroy presented?
I'll second.
Right. Any other nominations? Well, let's have a vote. Those that wish to vote for me as your chair, let yourselves be known.
Aye.
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 I guess I need to vote for myself so that it's a quorum, right? Aye.
All right. So
I guess,
we do need to also appoint somebody to the vice chair.
okay, so Todd's position expired. Okay.
It's on the phone. He's eligible to be vice chair again.
Okay. Anybody has any comments about a vice chair? Any volunteers?
If Todd's been running a meeting, that makes sense to nominate Todd if,
I'd second that.
All right, let's vote for Todd then as vice chair. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, motion carries.
All right.
I need to bring my laptop because frankly, I can't read the screen over there. You know, let me share. Okay, it looks like there's a motion to recommend that the city planning that the city council approve the professional planning services contract with Greg Dorn and Associates.
Yeah, so if you'd like, I can speak to this.
Let's speak to that.
Greg Dorn has been our planning consultant since I believe 2017. We brought him on board to help us with our major overhaul of our comprehensive plan, which was adopted in 2018. And he's been here to help us along the way with implementation of our development regulations, Title 14, the overhaul of that, as well as minor amendments to our comprehensive plan and some tweaks here and there along the way. His current contract is it's still in effect, but we need to address, since it's getting long in the tooth. It's time to to make some revisions to it and address the coming year. So with that in mind, I asked Greg to prepare a revision for that. He's done a fantastic job for us over the years. Has really gotten to know the community with College Place and the Walla Walla Valley, city of Walla Walla, and the county as well. So he's in a great position to help us through the next phase, which we'll talk about in greater detail under the next agenda item, are the planning goals and objectives for the coming year. But one of the big lifts is going to be assisting the city with and the county and the city of Walla Walla on the update of the countywide planning policies, and then also looking at what do we do with Martin Airfield and any of the other planning goals that we have in the next coming year. So with that, I won't go into great detail. You guys all had it before you to take a look at, but I'd love for you to make a motion to recommend approval of this contract for council to approve, so we can stay on track with the upcoming updates.
So before we do a motion, since I know Greg is in attendance and there's a lot of commissioners that are new and might not really know Greg very well. Greg, would you mind saying a few words just about what you have been doing here for the city? And I guess I'd like to hear from you that you really want to continue in this position.
Thank you, commissioners. Once again, for the record, my name is Greg Dorn, and I've been serving as the city's planning consultant, I think for 5 or 6 years now. And as John noted, it started with a comprehensive review and update of the city's comprehensive plans, particularly the goals and policies in the comprehensive plan. And upon adoption of the amendments to the comprehensive plan, we then went through an extensive process to consolidate all of the city's regulations that affect development and redevelopment that were spread throughout the municipal code in 5 or 6 different chapters. We brought them all together into a single chapter known as the Unified Development Code, so that property owner, project sponsor, developer, neighbors could go to a single source to find out and understand the regulations and standards that would affect development and redevelopment within the city. That process, Randall, you and some of the veterans on the Planning Commission will remember, took quite some time, but we successfully completed the consolidation. And since then, we have been fine-tuning the regulations as John has been implementing them and taking on additional assignments from the city council, such as the review of the countywide housing strategy and recommended actions to increase the supply of housing in general and affordable housing in particular in the county. So that's what we've been working on for the past several years. As John mentioned, the contract is still in effect. We had accomplished many of the items you'll note as you look at the scope of services. And John thought it was appropriate, and I agreed completely, that perhaps we would refine the scope of work for the coming year a bit to make it clear on what we are going to work on. As you'll note, every item in the contract is prefaced with "as requested by the city." So I work under the direction of John and in consultation with the city administrator, and that will not change. And as John mentioned, and we'll be discussing shortly, there are some revisions that may be appropriate to the comprehensive plan in the coming year, particularly the future land use map. And at long last, the city of College Place and the city of Walla Walla are getting closer to an agreement with Walla Walla County to review and update the countywide planning policies, which are in desperate need of updating, which would provide the framework for the county and all of the cities in the county to conduct the upcoming or the next comprehensive review and update of the comprehensive plan. And we've been talking about that for some time. We've been talking about how important that is for some time. And now it looks like it may happen at long last in 2023. So that's a long-winded answer to your question, Mr. Chair, but hopefully I kind of touched upon what we've been doing and what we hope to do in the coming year. And I have thoroughly enjoyed working with the city, and we'll look forward to working with John and Mike and with the Planning Commission in the coming year.
Thank you, Mr. Dorn. with that, is there any comment or any questions anybody have? If there's none, do I have a motion to recommend the professional services contract?
I'll move that we accept this new contract.
It's basically a recommendation to the city council. A second to that motion?
That was a motion.
Okay, so I have a motion and a second. So let's vote on this motion. No.
Who did the second?
I did.
Oh, okay, thank you.
So let's vote by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anybody opposed? Okay, so it passes. So let's move on to the next item, planning goals and objectives. John, you want to lead us on that?
Yeah, so as I briefly mentioned, you know, one of the big hurdles this coming year will be updating the countywide planning policies. And we're in the process right now of working on a draft interlocal agreement with the city of Walla Walla and the county. The county would be the lead on this, on the updating the countywide planning policies. And that document dates back to 1993. And what it does is it's essentially it's the framework for how we determine whether allocations are for growth, so population allocations, determining what parcels in our city limits are underdeveloped, what the market factor is, adjustment, a whole number of things, and I'll open it up to Greg to kind of elaborate, but this process, it's likely going to take a year to get through, and it's going to guide us in this next comprehensive plan amendment cycle that we're going to be up against in 2026. So some other things. So let's just start with that topic, Greg. If I could open the floor to you for discussion and dive into that, and then we can talk about the other items.
John, do you have the countywide planning policy document? Is that on the screen, or do the commissioners have a copy of that in front of them?
I did not give that to them as an attachment, and I don't have the ability to, well, I can you? No, I'm not in the Zoom meeting, so.
If I can be given the ability to co-share, I could pop a copy up onto the screen, or we can just talk about it.
Yeah, no, Sherry's gonna work that out for you, and then you should be able to share her in a second.
Okay, now let me then, I'll make sure I get the document up myself here, so bear with me while that's all happening. Let's see.
I have a question about the revisions.
Okay. Now, if I can share the screen. Was that successful?
Yep.
Yeah, before you proceed, Greg, Commissioner Alvarado, do you have a question or comment you want to?
Yeah, no, I think I was looking at the attachment that was that was in the website, and there's different colors under the revisions, and I was just curious on to and I think I may be looking at the newer document or a different document, but I was just curious if the colors were revisions were made by the different agencies, or who made the revisions. That was my main lead.
Is that, commissioners, are you referring to the draft of the agreement among the parties that's got
Correct.
lines through it everywhere?
Correct.
Yeah, those are proposed amendments that either have come from the city of Walla Walla or from Walla Walla County, or in some cases, John. And that document is still under review, and there very well may be some additional changes. Yeah, and John, I have had a chance to look at the document, and I do have some additional changes for your consideration. But Commissioner, that's kind of the current status of the deliberations between the parties.
Okay. Yeah, I was just curious if, and I don't mind my voice. I'm pretty sick, but yeah, I was just curious if the colors indicated who made the revisions, but I'm guessing probably not.
They do indicate different parties. For instance, I think if you see a lot of the, I don't know, maybe it's kind of a purple strike through. Those are the county. Yeah, it's either the county, the city of Walla Walla, or the city of College Place.
Thanks
And
for
we're not
indulging.
asking you to approve this document by any means, and I don't even think we'll be bringing it back to you. It's just to kind of give you a taste for where we're at right now, kind of going back and forth primarily with the county in this interlocal agreement.
Thanks for indulging my question.
Yep.
And,
Okay, Mr.
and
Thorne.
one of the significant, in my opinion, provisions in the Washington State Growth Management Act is the requirement that counties and cities and towns work collaboratively in the adoption and implementation of their comprehensive plans. And the countywide planning policies is to provide the framework, the plan for how the planning is going to occur, if you will. And as John mentioned, and you see it on the screen, that those countywide planning policies, the policies on how the county and the cities in the county are going to go about the business of preparing and implementing their comprehensive plans, was prepared in 1993 and is now 30 years later. And I think it's fair to say, not only in Walla Walla County, but in cities and counties all over the state in the last 30 years, we've gained a lot of experience and have a lot of new insights, and there are better ways to do things than we were aware of or understood back in 1993. And this is something that the city of Walla Walla and College Place in particular have taken the lead in communicating to the county the importance of doing just that, to review and update these goals and policies before we get into the work of updating your individual comprehensive plans, so that we are working off of a common set of instructions or directions, if you will. And one area in particular where there has been quite a bit of frustration experienced, I think it's fair to say, by both the city of Walla Walla and by the city of College Place, has to do with the goals and policies, the countywide goals and policies regarding urban growth areas. And the urban growth areas, in very briefly for new commissioners, and we can talk more about it in the future, but include the incorporated cities and areas around those cities where the city's urban services, particularly sewer and water, already exist or can reasonably be provided. And it's to enable cities to think forward 20 years out into the future to, what are the logical boundaries for our services, and to gauge in meaningful, comprehensive our capital facilities planning on how we're going to extend water lines and how we're going to extend sewer lines and who's going to pay for it, and to ensure that we have a sufficient amount of land suitable for development. And one of the things that has been an experience in Walla Walla County is that Walla Walla County, more so than other counties in the state, it has a very serious problem with affordable housing, and there may be a number of reasons for it, but one could argue that if you don't have a sufficient supply of land suitable for development where urban services exist or reasonably provided, what you're going to have then is very high land prices, which then drives very high development costs and makes housing unaffordable. So this whole area of making sure that the cities and the county agree on the process and the criteria for expanding urban growth areas is going to be of critical importance in the coming years. Also, there, I think, is appropriate to look at how joint planning will occur within those urban growth areas. And if it is an area that is going to be annexed into the city at some point in time, should there not be an agreement between the city and the county to use city development standards until such time that the area is annexed, as opposed to county development standards? So that's another area within this document that is certainly subject to review. And commissioners, as you get a chance to review this, you'll see the policies on capital facilities planning. Transportation is another big item that requires a high level of coordination between jurisdictions. And certainly affordable housing is something that's going to come up time and time and time again. Economic development, of course, is necessarily not only to provide an economic base for the community, but also to provide the tax revenues necessary to provide the level of services that are required. And the county has an obligation under the law to protect farmlands and natural resource lands, which includes timberlands. And so the county has some obligations under the Growth Management Act. And in order for them to meet their obligations to protect farmlands and to protect timberlands, the way to do that is to direct development into urban areas, once again, where services exist or reasonably be provided. So even though the county has some obligations unique to themselves, they cannot meet those obligations without planning jointly with the cities and towns. And so, commissioners, all of this is potentially subject to review. The county, to date, I think it is fair to say, has expressed a desire to limit the scope of the review of the countywide planning policies. I think it's fair to say that the cities have recognized that comprehensive planning is called just that for a reason, which is that it is comprehensive by its nature. And if you're going to be updating countywide planning policies to be used to guide the update of your comprehensive plans, you have to be prepared to potentially address everything, because it is interrelated. That's what the nature of a comprehensive plan is. And that's, I think, reflected in some of the markups in the interlocal agreement between the parties who still haven't completely come to an agreement on how broad the scope of the review is going to be. But commissioners, as you look through it, you'll see that there is no shortage of opportunities to update this document in the coming year. And so that is certainly going to be a primary focus. John, is there things that you'd like to further add?
No, I think you covered it well. Thank you.
So I have a question, Commissioner Brennis.
Mhm.
What seems to be the hesitancy in the county to do just a review of everything? Is it to do with costs or money, or is there something else?
John, do you have a sense of that?
Not that I'm willing to put on public record.
All
Yeah.
right.
It's a bit of a mystery, and I think it's fair to say that the city of Walla Walla and the city of College Place are, you know, of a like mind, even though the cities may have, you know, some different, you know, specific needs or interests. But in terms of the big picture, what I've observed and noticed is that there's a lot of kind of a common view or common vision between the two principal cities in the county.
In your experience, is that a pretty common thing between cities and counties? That's my impression, but
That is, you have raised a very good point. I don't know what it is, but there seems to be something about that where there's just counties and cities have different perspectives on things, and this is certainly not the only county where there are challenges. There's probably a shorter list of cities and counties that really have established a strong working relationship and kind of have a common vision from top to bottom. That's probably a smaller list than the cities and counties that are, you know, just have some different views of things and are having to really spend some time to try to work through them. But once again, from my perspective, that's one of the positive outcomes of the Growth Management Act. And I think this is an important step, because if you don't do this step, how are you ever going to complete the task if you haven't gone through and tried to establish some, you know, and identify where the common items are and where there's a different view of things. So it may be a frustrating step, but it's nevertheless an important one.
Can I ask Commissioner Aberly, can I ask a potentially ignorant question? I noticed that at least on this document, city of Touchy is not listed. Touchy is part of the county, correct? Walla Walla County, is that an accurate statement?
Touchy and Dixie, they're unincorporated areas. And so that the county does the planning for them, but
Okay.
they're,
So they would not be included in this particular document.
right, so they're covered generally under Walla Walla County.
Okay, so the county-
Burbank is the same way.
Yeah.
Okay.
So these are the incorporated areas.
Has there been any communication from the smaller entities, Prescott, Wicksburg? Do they have any specific contribution to this, the document proposed?
Randy, Hinchcliffe with Waitsburg was at our last meeting, and I mean, in general, you know, he's on board with the agreement and wants to move forward with the countywide, updating the countywide planning policies. Prescott, I think the county does planning for Prescott as well, even though they're incorporated, but they have size.
Okay.
I think their mayor occasionally, you know, will participate in things like this.
Okay.
They will be involved in the process, but primarily, you know, the major players in where development is occurring is in Walla Walla, College Place, and Waitsburg.
Okay.
So.
And John, I would add for the new commissioners, I think the two most important documents to read or on your own to familiarize yourself would be this document, the countywide planning policies, and then at least the goals and policies in the College Place comprehensive plan. There's a lot of narrative that goes with it. It's helpful, but the goals and policies themselves are I think particularly important. And so as a new commissioner, if the opportunity presents itself, you know, a comfortable chair by the fireplace and a cup of coffee or two. Those would be the two documents I'd recommend that you read and start to become familiar with, because they're going to get a lot of discussion over the coming year.
Can I request links to access those documents?
John, there's one other document that bear with me, I've kind of looked over my screen to, and I'll see if I can't get up, let's see, College Place, and we go to maps. And
you're gonna pull up the land use map?
yes,
Yeah, I think that's a good next step, and we can talk about Martin Airfield and. Is that what you're thinking?
yep. So let me see if I can figure out where it is. Yeah. So commissioners, there are, and I need to stop share and then share again. Yep. Okay.
You actually had it.
There. Is it there?
No.
Yes.
Okay. Commissioners, there's two important maps that we deal with on a regular basis. The future land use map and the official zoning map. The zoning map establishes districts, and by those districts identifies specific uses, land uses that are permitted, and establishes the standards that must be met when new development occurs. So there may be a commercial or general commercial district where you find a number of commercial uses and it has the standards for commercial development, or single family residential or multifamily residential. So that's the map that gets used most frequently by project sponsors, developers, and the like. But there's another map that's very important, which is the future land use map, which is a part of the comprehensive plan. And it says, this is what we are working toward. And if there are going to be changes to the official zoning map in the future, this is how the changes will be made. And so that map is used then specifically to evaluate rezone requests. And it is important for the city as a tool when it's planning to extend and make improvements to capital facilities, water lines, sewer lines, streets and roads and the like. And the map that the city has in place now needs some updating, because there have been some revisions to the urban growth area boundaries, some of which the city supported, some of which the city did not. And the city has acquired some property recently that needs to be reflected. And some of the veteran commissioners will remember that over time, we've periodically pulled the document out, talked about some of the changes, but this would be a good year to dust that document back off and to have a discussion with the planning commission and then with the broader community to make sure that the future land use designations are in alignment with your vision, and that any of the changes that need to be made have been made. And in particular, an area of focus and emphasis is around Martin Airfield, where there is now a new owner. And in the city's comprehensive plan, there's a lot of talk about preserving Martin Airfield as an airfield. And now there's a new owner of that, and there need to be some discussions to see if that is consistent with his vision. And then also from a practical standpoint, down in the southeast corner of the city is an area where, because of a variety of circumstances, the city has extended water and sewer mains or has the ability to very reasonably do so. So there is a logical area for the city to grow to the southeast, and it may or may not be logical to grow to the northwest. And these have been issues that have been discussed and will continue to be discussed between the city and the county. But in the coming year, particularly this area right here is going to require some consultation with the new property owner. And so commissioners, in addition to the countywide planning policy review, it would be appropriate to, like I say, dust this off, make sure we have things correct, and then get that out for public review and comment, and then to the city council, so the city at least has a up-to-date future land use map as it moves forward in its discussions with the county. So, John, is there anything more you want to add about this map? Many of the commissioners may recognize it, but it still is a work in progress.
I guess the only thing I'd add, related to the Martin Airfield property is, Michael Corliss owns that property, acquired it kind of in the middle of when we were in the process of updating our comprehensive plan. And the map that Greg has here, I can't see the dates, but I'm assuming, Greg, that this is something you've been working on, because this is not.
This is something that I think the planning commission last saw in 2021, but it's been kind of sitting on the sidelines since then.
So the orange area is Martin Airfield for the members that are new. In our current comprehensive plan, I think you have up the existing one. Well, it's basically undefined. We were planning on moving that UGA down south of Walmart, and not having it in our urban growth area any longer. So that's why our comprehensive plan doesn't address it. But that changed when the ownership changed, and they did not want to come out of the UGA. So we need to hopefully engage with the property owner. The city administrator and myself, over the last couple of years have been in conversations with the current property owner. And at one point in time, they were working with the county on a airport overlay district, I think is what it was called, if I remember correctly. And that I don't have it, no.
When it was a airport overlay district, you know what that?
Oh, can I define it?
Yeah, what that means?
Oh, there's state and federal guidelines on the operations of airports, dealing with, everything from development that can occur around the runways, how they manage their properties, development outside of their properties, the densities. That's what they were going after, was getting a plan on the books. And that, I believe, stalled out at the county level. And I don't think it was, I think the county had asked for some clarifications on things, and just the process, for whatever reason, stalled out. But
and this is a perfect example of the benefit of joint planning, because the airports have safety zones at both ends of the runway, as opposed to, as well as on the sides, because you don't want to have uses along the sides that's creating conflicts, like generating smoke or attracting birds or things. But if most accidents at an airport occur either right before landing or just after takeoff. And so what happens at the end of the runways is particularly important. And in this case, this area has not been annexed into the city, but what occurs at the end of at least one of the runways very much involves the city, and so the county couldn't establish a meaningful safety zone around the airport without collaborating with the city. And so that's just one of several examples of where there needs to be some joint planning. The county had said that this area 3B should, like the rest of the airport, should be industrial. Well, commissioners, if you're familiar with this area, you know that it's on a bluff several hundred feet in elevation higher than the airfield, and that the only way to get through it is to a residential neighborhood. So how would you have an industrial development that could only be accessed through a residential street at several hundred feet elevation above the rest of the property? And so, you know, that's where having some more detailed and joint planning and making sure that this area, it would be, for instance, residential, which is consistent with the area that's at the same elevation and it shares the same roads, and allows this other area to be considered for other potential uses. So it's a good example of why it's so important for cities and counties to be on the same page. And some days they are, and some days they aren't.
So this is kind of what we're going to be working on in the coming year. You know, how soon the update of the countywide planning policies and how soon that'll take place. Hopefully we're able to work through this interlocal agreement in the next month and get that approved by the agencies, and then we'll have to go out for request for proposals and get a sub-consultant on board for updating the countywide planning policies, and then that'll likely be probably a 5 to 6 month process, I would think, working with through the amendment process at the county level. And our plan is to use the planning commission as a sounding board for that. If you read through the interlocal agreement, it looks like we're settling. We're probably going to have 2 members from each jurisdiction. That would be on like an advisory panel, essentially. We haven't settled on anything exactly, but it's likely going to be a staff person and maybe the mayor or the city administrator. We haven't figured that out yet. Possibly it could be a member of the planning commission as well. But I haven't had that conversation with the mayor yet to find out how she wants to handle that. But certainly, something that we can tackle, right away is start looking at the Martin Airfield property and any tweaks that we might need to, Greg might be suggesting to the goals and policies of the comprehensive plan and any of the other land use map amendments we might need to take a look at. So any further questions or conversations about the coming year?
If I can just get a little more clarification, it sounds like we're going to be having some significant discussions surrounding the Martin Airfield property, or at least that zone, and moving into that area. It looked like on that initial map, we were looking to zone that for multifamily residential. Is there a plan to, trying to understand, is the goal of the new owner to remove the airfield and put multifamily housing or some sort of residential housing in that space?
No, I don't.
Maybe
that orange, I don't think that orange color was meant to represent multifamily.
Okay.
Greg, what did you have that labeled as? Just
Yeah.
undesignated or something, or?
Well, on this particular map, which is just a discussion draft, we have it labeled as a master plan development, suggesting that since there's close to 200 acres there, that it really lends itself to a master plan development, and it might be premature to pick a principal land use like light industrial or multifamily residential or something, and go through a process of developing a master plan for that area. That it was previously designated industrial on the city's future land use map, which is how it's designated on the county's map. And it's certainly not uncommon at all. In fact, it's very common to find light industrial uses around an airfield or an airport. But on the other hand, this is a little bit unique in that to get to the airfield, you would have to drive through the heart of the city and through the college campus and through residential neighborhoods to get there. And in the absence of some other way of getting out to the state highways, it may be that this land is not well suited for industrial development. And it also may be that the new owner may not have an interest in maintaining the airfield. Although there is now, I've seen, and in fact, I've been involved in another project where it's the case where they're building residential around the airfield, kind of with the notion that at least some of the lots would be kind of a fly in, fly out type thing, where you may have, instead of a large front yard or a backyard, you may have an airplane hangar where you can store your own planes. So some of the development scenarios are changing, but those are the kinds of things that we need to discuss, is how do the current uses reconcile with future visions and the existing development pattern of the city. Something's going to have to change or give to bring it all into focus.
Yeah, I mean, really with the Martin Airfield property, the first thing that we're gonna need to do is hopefully get the property owner in a room and get Greg in there with him and really start asking him questions about, what are your goals? I mean, is it to preserve the airport, which that, to my understanding, that is that's why he bought it. He wants to preserve it. And, from the planning that he has done so far, what have they discovered that would be compatible uses, and what would be what does he need from us, to accomplish that? Basically, we need to really open a dialogue with him. It's been kind of hit and miss. Mr. Corliss is, he has a lot of irons in the fire, so to speak. He owns a lot of properties in the valley, and so, we don't know.
Engaging in discussion, because that is a pretty significant piece.
Engaging and discussing, and then coming back to you with ideas on how to, and Greg brought up the master plan development, which was just recently, we added to our development regulations that development tool, and that it very well may be a perfect tool for Mr. Corliss to use to develop his property. But we need to have a dialogue with him. That's going to be key.
Thank you.
I think that's all I have.
Just a matter of curiosity, I'm just wondering, John, if you can give us a little bit of an update of any major development that might be afoot in the College Place?
Sure. So residential wise, I guess we'll just kind of move into the report section, which we don't have anything attached or on the agenda, but I'll just give you a brief kind of overview of where things are at.
Hey, John,
Yes.
could I sign off at this point?
Yeah, sure. Go ahead, Greg. Thank you.
Thank you, Greg.
Thanks.
Yep, you bet. Thank you, commissioners. We'll see you next month.
Thanks, Greg.
Thank you.
Residential wise, the villages of the villages of Garrison Creek, they have 2 phases that they got preliminary plat approval last year for 70 lots. So that's the development off of Larch and Garrison Village Way. So there's, I want to say it's 15 to 20 acres, something like that left. That they will continue similar style housing development, similar lot sizes, walking trails will be developed through there to tie in to the rest of the neighborhood. And they are in engineering right now, their civil site work. And I've been told by the engineer that their goal is to have their plans approved late winter, early spring, so that they can start putting in the infrastructure this summer. So that's good news. We also have a small, I think it's 12 lots off of Southwest 12, down on the west end of town, called Deer Meadows. It's a single family or duplex neighborhood. And that is made it through preliminary plat approval last fall, and we're awaiting civil plan submittal. I talked to their civil engineer last week, and they indicated that they were just waiting on the power plant, the plans for the power, before they submit. Multifamily, the Hamby's, Dave and Clayton Hamby, they developed the property up there off of Silver Star Lane in College Avenue on top of the hill. Multifamily development that's been going on over the last 10 years or so. And they bought a piece of property from the Goose Estate off of 6th, across from the old Rogers School site. And they're planning I want to say it's 30 unit apartment, something like that, apartment complex back there. So that's good. The Hamby's seem to, when they start a project, they seem to follow through. So that's good. That'll help with their multifamily affordable housing. And then the Village at Fort Walla Walla property off of Whitman. That was that 180 unit apartment complex. That, we were very excited about, and it just never, they submitted building plans and they submitted their civil plans, and they pretty much had everything all approved. Actually, they did. We had invoiced the project for permits, and then they never came and paid for their permits. They didn't pay for their plan review, and so things went stale. They did submit they did pay for their plan review recently, last Thursday, and they're resubmitting. They're telling us that they're going to resubmit for their building plans late this month. So that's promising. Commercial wise, of course, you've all, I'm sure, have visited the Goodwill. That's up and running, and they're very happy there. Sales have been up. Tax revenue's been good, I've been told. Very happy to have them part of the city, and they've been good business to work with. They're good. And then Chipotle is supposed to open. We're working on their tenant improvements for they're dividing that into 2 spaces, the Chase Bank property. And the Chipotle restaurant side will be on the north side of it, and they'll have a drive-up window. You have to order online and drive up. It's not like a drive-through, but and so that's probably going to be late summer, early fall for their opening at the restaurant.
Are they demolishing that existing building?
No, they're gonna
Repurpose.
Yeah, repurpose it. There'll be another. The Chipotle is supposed to be 2,400 square feet, and then there'll be another tenant space available, something like 1,700 square feet. Don't have any idea what that other tenant is. We have been talking to a hotel that's interested in being down there next to where the Hop Beef is. So that's looking up. Um, what else? Those are kind of the big highlights.
So I wonder, is there any, in Homestead in the area that they didn't do that they were supposed to do? I don't know if it was cottages or something. Is that just kind of laying there, no plans for that, or?
They have approved plans for the infrastructure. They have not submitted any building plans, and I have had some communication with the developer, Brian Thorson, who represents Hayden Homes, and I think they were considering changing the product. I want to say he said like maybe some two-story with some garages. As opposed to the just the strictly cottage style and everybody parks in a parking lot. But I haven't seen any revisions to those plans, so not sure what's gonna happen there, but
So John, I've also have heard that the city has a project on Majonier Road Improvement Project.
Oh, yeah.
Is that in anticipation of some development there?
yes, yeah, thank you. That I completely forgot about that end of town. So the Christensen property, so there's two major property owners south of Majonier. Was Mike McKiernan. There is Mike McKiernan, who owns the stretch that's closest to the College Avenue. And his residence is up there at the top of the hill off of Majonier. And then Craig Christensen owned the farm ground to the west of that. And Craig has sold his property to a company, Lakeside is the development company that's working on it. And they're out of the Post Falls area. And they're working on submitting, likely they're going to submit a master plan development for that. It's roughly 200 acres of property that would be primarily residential and possibly some multifamily in the mix. And that will all tie in with, we're in design right now for Majonier Road. Along that section is in the city of College Place, so we're redoing that complete road section to urban standards from College Avenue west to the city limits, which I want to say is it doesn't go all the way to Teal. There's a private road. I can't remember the blue. I want to blue or anyhow. So that's in design, and we're communicating with the future developers about appropriate locations for access into their site. The lift station down there is operating, looking great. And we, as part of the land transaction that took place with the Christensen property, Mike McKiernan gave right of way across his property so that the developer can access that lower part. We're working on tax increment finance, the TIF for that area down there, so that we can basically it will help us assist and pay for infrastructure the city puts in. We have a consultant that's been helping us through that process.
Good. Thank you.
Yeah.
Commissioners, anybody else have any questions or comments? If not, it looks like we're down to closing. So let me just inform that now as the chair, I will be absent the next meeting. I might be able to attend via Zoom, but not 100% sure that I will. So hopefully Mr. Ricewig is going to be available.
And we are down a member, so if you know anybody that you think might be a good fit, please let us know, or, and we can, get them an application.
All right. Well, I forgot, do we need a motion to adjourn?
Motion to conclude.
Motion to conclude?
Yes.
Do I hear a motion to conclude?
I'll make that motion. This is Wagoner. I make that motion to adjourn.
Second?
Second.
All right, let's, do we vote on that? Or no?
No, you don't.
Okay, so with that, then we will conclude our meeting. Thank you all commissioners that attended. Thank you for the staff. See you next month.
Thank you.
Hey, John,
Good evening.
hey, John,
Yes, yes.
just a couple questions and a couple comments. If there's anything outstanding that I need to sign, exhibit maps, for example, before we take off next week, I probably need to know about that.
Okay, well, let's touch base tomorrow.
I was also curious regarding the situation on Lark Street. Is that something we can?
We can't have these discussions. We're still,
Okay.
in a live meeting. Sorry,
Excuse me,
sorry.
sorry. I thought we were done.
No, well, I mean, we have to broadcast still,
Excuse me.
as long as there's a quorum and whatnot, so.
Okay.